Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Karuna Chronicles. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you will find some informative content today. I think that you will, because what we're going to do is continue on with a little bit of our impermanence dialogue and move from that to how do we make choices in life. Suffering is endemic to all of our lives, in mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And by and large, suffering occurs when we make a choice that causes it. Yes, you can certainly have examples of exterior or outside situations and conditions that would cause us to have suffering. For instance, I remember earthquakes. That's a good one. Or volcanic eruptions that bury cities and so on. Anything, even what we're going through now. There is worldwide upheaval where people are losing their jobs and they're becoming very sick and even dying. So how do you deal with that when you don't think that you caused it? Well, in actuality, we sort of do. We don't cause the event itself, but it's our reaction to the event or the condition or the circumstance that really is the telling factor about what our suffering is going to be and in what type of form it's going to take and how much we really want to suffer. So an example of that would be if I walked outside and I was barefoot and I stepped on a nail and it punctured all the way through my foot and it's a rusty nail. I have to go to the doctor. I have to go get a tetanus shot. I may need some minor surgery, a stitch or two or something like that, and certainly antibiotics. And, there's a process that's going to happen, and pain and so on. But first and foremost in my mind is that who left that nail there? Well, we just had a house remodel. Probably one of the carpenters or somebody left that nail there. Maybe even I left it there. I don't know. The nail was just there, and I stepped on it. A happenstance. But in my mind, I'm thinking, it's that damn carpenter, And I'm thinking that he's to blame for my suffering. When the real blame should be me, because I'm assigning blame to someone. And we do this constantly. We constantly look at other people and outside circumstances and say, that's the source of my suffering, when truly it's our own reaction to the stimulus or stimuli from a person, place, thing that we take into ourselves, and then we say, whatever this is, they're responsible or it is responsible for our suffering. No, we are choosing that type of response. Now, what else could we choose besides blame? Well, we can choose anything. We can choose compassion. We can choose joy. We can choose anything. We could choose nothing. Oh, no big deal. It just happens. Part of life. Move on. But when we start assigning blame, then that gives rise to many of the other negative emotions, such as anger and so on, and then suffering really, really ramps up. We decide that not only did this carpenter, he was dumb when he dropped his nail, but the amount of pain I am going through because of this injury is he's really responsible for this, and now I don't like this man. It's not that he dropped the nail. It's because I'm suffering and he's responsible. Gosh, what a quagmire that is. And everybody does this. There's not anybody that's immune from this type of thought or response or anything. It's an accident that happened. The conditions and circumstances were absolutely perfect, that where I put my foot at that particular moment in time was on a discarded nail. I could have moved my foot 2 inches to the right and missed the nail completely. But it didn't happen. It was an accident. The assignment of blame has no territory or boundary. It has the widest and most open field of just about anything in our lives. And we get into real trouble with this. Really, my teachers have told me, drive all blame into one. And that one would be self. Because we're the ones that are creating the blame to begin with. We're the ones that are assigning values to conditions and circumstances that don't really exist. The nail is a nail. It's sitting in the ground, minding its own business. Well, it doesn't have a business. It's inanimate. It's just sitting there. But once I step on it, then it takes a life of its own because I've created that life. And I've created this scenario, and a carpenter is responsible for my pain. You know, I could have just said, damn, bad luck, and moved on. But instead, I didn't. Now, we don't do this all the time, but we certainly, if you look at your own life, you can see readily that you have done this in various ways, shapes, forms, etc., and that it becomes a very convenient way for us to develop patterns of negative emotions. I may go through life with a slight limp because it severed a small nerve in my foot. And every time I think about this limp, I think about this carpenter, you know, who I don't remember his face and I don't remember his name 20 years ago, but he did this to my foot, you know? No, that's not it. And what an immense creation and expiation and waste eventually of energy that we put ourselves through. Energy that is distractive to our own happiness. The ability to assign blame is a choice. And that's the principal thing I want to talk to you about today, choice. You know, we have choices in life that we can, that we face every single moment. You know, breathing is a choice. Our heartbeat is a choice. They're autonomic and they're part of our life, but they're still choices. You can hold your breath until you die if you care to. But the main thing is that the choices that we make that I'm really talking about are the ones that are mental and emotional and physical and ultimately spiritual choices. So following the example of the nail, I chose to assign blame to somebody that was here that I never really got to know, and I've carried that blame for many years. So I made a choice, and that choice has caused me suffering. If I make the choice to rob a grocery store, say, or my favorite place, 7-Eleven, you know, that's a choice that I make, and it definitely causes harm to the 7-Eleven company, to the poor person who was behind the counter that I threatened, to the bottom line of the business, whoever owns that 7-Eleven, and on and on and on. But principally, it causes suffering to myself. If I rob or steal anything, I become a thief. I go to bed with that same thief at night, and I wake up with that same thief in the morning. I eat a thief's Cheerios, and I brush a thief's teeth, and I go about my day being a thief. Even if I only did it once, there was a choice that has a residual after effect to me, karmically and mentally, physically, and emotionally. Because I got away with it the first time may allow me a type of permissiveness to think, wow, I'm good at this, you know. I'm a good thief and I have all this money in my hands, you know. I wish that there was more 20s than there are ones, but I'll take it all. And so I think to myself, well, I'll do it again sometime. And maybe I do it again. Maybe I do it another time. Maybe I stop. But what I've done is created, unwittingly, a habit pattern in my thoughts. That is by choice. These choices are to become or do or say or think or feel whatever it is that's in front of us that we think is a pathway that we want to follow. Now, how would when we're taught about growing up in life about morality and so on, we're given basically an either-or kind of a situation, or pairs of opposites. We're given good and bad, right and wrong, black and white, etc. And unfortunately, we built our societies throughout history around these things. For instance, all of our laws are both right and wrong and good and bad. The morality part is the right and wrong. The good and bad is that you did follow the law or you didn't follow the law. And there are consequences for these things that result from making these types of choices. But unfortunately, these choices are not hard and fast. They're movable. And we need to really find something that isn't movable. And that becomes an issue because as we have grown in our lives, we have really solidified the fact that we consider this right or this wrong. For instance, in many religions, there's something, and I'll use the Catholic form of it, there's a commandment that says, "Thou shalt not kill." Well, that's easy to understand. It's a few words, and it's a definitive, "Thou shalt not kill." But I've seen many things on television where a war hero comes back from the war and gets the Medal of Honor for killing people. He becomes a hero for doing something that is clear, "Thou shalt not kill." So that's what I mean by hard and fast. There's nothing. If the line continues to move one way or the other, you can't base your morality on that line because there's always an excuse or a reason to vary away from that very succinct, definitive, "Thou shalt not kill." So basically, the good, bad, the right, wrong, the black, white are not really very useful for us. We use them, but since they're changeable, and since we can also change them, not only can society or the law be changed or anything, but we can just simply say, "I don't care," or "I don't believe in this law," or "I don't want to follow it," one thing or another. So we need something that is going to be a guide for us that comes from ourselves, comes from our own God nature, that is basically, I'm not going to say infallible, although it can be and will be at some point in our existence, but certainly less fallible than the systems that we have now. And there's only two of these choices. The first one is look at what you're doing. Look at what's in front of you. Is what I'm going to do, think, feel, say, any type of energy coming away from me towards any or all beings, towards any or all situations? Is this going to cause suffering to any being? If you could say, if you examine this and you say yes to yourself, it is, then there's a basis of choice. Do I want to cause someone suffering? Well, if you look at this a little bit closer, again, going back to the thief, when I choose to cause suffering, some part of me becomes that which I do. So if I steal from someone and become a thief, then I am a thief. And so the first person that it causes suffering to is me. I hurt myself by causing suffering to someone else, because now I've changed my whole mind and my emotional body, my mental body, my physical body, my spiritual body geared towards taking advantage of others and stealing from others if I continue to be a thief. And of course, this makes for a very disruptive life, possibly a dangerous one. Some guy can pull out a shotgun and kill me at the counter there, or I could get arrested and go to jail. And so many things can happen. But the first thing that happens is that there's a change inside me that allows a permissiveness to hurt someone else. So that's the first basis of choice we should really look at. If we make the choice to cause suffering, to hurt or injure others, then we're very short-sighted, because the first person to suffer is us. The possibility of personal happiness, the possibility of extending perfect love or practicing kindness diminish. And the more we practice whatever negativity that we're doing or whatever habit that we've cultivated, the farther these things get away from us in our actuality and ability to practice them. And the less we become caring about other beings, how they feel, how they think, how our activity influences them, and so on, we become basically a selfish form of predator. And causing suffering is a form of predation. And that's simply our choice. When I say simply, it's not really simple. But in terms of the actual act of choosing, it is simple. We either can choose it or we don't. Simple as that. There are lots of factors that may guide us into choosing to harm or injure someone. But essentially, it's a simple choice. We choose to do it. Please ponder this a bit, because we're so attuned to assigning blame externally to us. Oh, this caused me to do this. He or she caused me to feel this way. And none of that is really true. I mean, we can convince ourselves that it's true, and we very often do. But the author of all of our suffering is us. We pick up the pen, we commit everything to paper our whole life, and if we choose to cause suffering, we write it down, and it becomes part of us. It becomes our life. And yes, you can, at another point in life, discontinue that practice, but at some point you have to realize that everything we do is a very simple choice. If we choose to hurt someone, then that's our responsibility, and it hurts us first. Okay, so please tune in again, and we'll continue this and wrap it up with a second choice. If you like this video, hit the like button, and if you want to find out what's coming, hit the subscribe button. We want this to be an open forum, so we welcome your comments and questions, and we'll endeavor to answer them as quickly as we can. Again, thank you very much.